This is a Fox News alert. The text of the Senate's border bill finally released, and lead negotiator Senator Lankford just defended it on Fox and Friends with Brian last hour.
Mark Meredith is live in Washington with a preview of what is in the bill. And Mark, you know, a lot of lawmakers who've already criticized it are now actually getting a look at it.
Steve Ainsley and Brian Lawrence, good morning. Friends, you're right. Lawmakers have some reading to do with this comprehensive foreign aid and border security package, which was just released overnight. Some senators have been working on this for months, but it's not clear if it's really going to ever make it out of the Senate. So what are we talking about here? We're talking about $118 billion to cover a variety of different things. For foreign aid, we're talking about specific money to go towards Ukraine, as well as $14 billion to Israel, $2 billion to help with Central Command as it's carrying out operations near the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden, and then also additional money to help the folks in Gaza, $10 billion in humanitarian aid. But border security, that's the big controversy this morning. Under the proposal, it would have a mandatory shutdown of the U.S. border if daily averages of 5,000 people or more would be encountered over a weekly period. So the idea would be this would trigger the response to shut down the border automatically. It would also change the current catch and release policies in place, as well as create a new border emergency authority, while also trying to get more people to help with the federal government's efforts to control the border. We heard from one of the key architects of this proposal within the last 30 minutes, Senator James Lankford of Oklahoma.
We've got to be able to have something that mandatorily deports everyone rather than actually releases everyone. That's what this does. Some people are thinking that this is somehow like counting 5,000 people in every day and releasing them. That's absurd. We changed the asylum laws. We increased detention beds. We doubled the deportation flights. We add ankle monitors for people that are actually coming through, that do these family groups that come through, so we can track any individual that when we don't have capacity. There's all the things that we build into this to make this a much stronger system. Gaps that are in the law get closed in this structure.
We are also hearing from the White House about this proposal. The president says this is both tough and fair when it comes to changes for border security. He now wants Congress to pass this quickly and have it reach his desk. But there are plenty of indications that that may not happen anytime soon, because as Steve mentioned, even before this legislation was released, we heard from lawmakers who vowed to do all they could to prevent it from going forward. And overnight, it was the House Speaker, Mike Johnson, who made it clear he's no fan of what's going on. He posted, "I've seen enough. This bill is even worse than we expected and won't come close to ending the border catastrophe the president has created." As the lead Democrat negotiator proclaimed, under this legislation, the border never closes. If this bill reaches the House, it will be dead on arrival. And it's not just Republicans in the House that have been speaking up. We have heard from some of the, at least one Democratic senator who says he's got real reservations about this, saying it believes it goes too closer to what the Trump era immigration policies were. So Steve Ainsley, Brian, and Lawrence, you're seeing a real debate play out here at the same time this morning, just hours after this bill came out. And whether or not it actually is able to be moved forward, that is the question. There is some procedural action happening about Wednesday, I believe, of this week. Guys,
The
back to you.
cloture vote. All right. Mark, thank you very much.
You bet.
Great job on the interview, Brian, because it gave us opportunity to get some stuff.
Yeah, my goal was to let him talk, to explain it, because now we're going to debate it.
And I think that's important because you got to know where the folks stand on the issue. Listen, a lot of folks, me and the senator are from the same hometown of Garland, Texas. A lot of folks proud of him, but it's not personal. And I took umbrage with a lot of things in the interview. The first is the catch and release policy. He says it's not in there. It's right here in the bill right here. And he says it's not catch and release because it's the monitors as well. Well, the monitors are monitored by a third-party company. And these people take these monitors off all the time. Just ask Chicago, just ask Minnesota when you have criminals doing it. The other thing he talked about, and Brian pressed him on, is the POTUS emergency order. He says, look, the only way he can do that, yeah, it's in the bill that he can declare emergency, but those are only special cases when there's a hurricane or something like that. Have y'all been following the Biden administration? They want to declare climate emergency, healthcare emergency. There's a new emergency for everything. I don't trust that. The third thing is when it comes to the asylum officers, and he didn't really touch on this. It used to be with a federal judge. The asylum officers are placed under the Department of Homeland Security, meaning Alejandro Mayorkas would be the boss of that. I'm not sure I want the person determining the immigration law under the Department of Homeland Security and not in the judge. There's going to be a lot of reaction on this, but he didn't touch on those specifics and move the
Well, the
needle.
Democrats wanted this. They wanted money funding for Ukraine. In this is also funding for Israel. And Republicans said, before we do that, we're also attaching this border issue because we have a major problem down on our southern border. So as you were saying in the first hour, they're not going to get everything they want.
Right.
Senator Langford was saying once this moves forward and we vote on it, then we can move forward with changing things and negotiating and trying to work together at a bipartisan level.
Right, and I thought he did a really good job explaining his point of view. And here's the thing: it's bipartisan. So it's like the Republicans aren't going to get everything they want.
Right.
Democrats aren't going to get everything they want. He did say he had a number of senators who were backing him up. But ultimately, there's so much disinformation out there because it's an election year. And both sides are essentially running on it. And here we have a soundbite from the interview with Brian. And you can find the entire interview. It's terrific at foxandfriends.com, where he talks a little bit about the number of people in his own party who were slamming the bill before they even looked at it. Watch this.
The key aspect of this, again, is are we as Republicans going to have press conferences and complain the border's bad and then intentionally leave it open? After the worst month in American history in December, now we've got to actually determine, are we going to just complain about things, or are we going to actually address and change as many things as we can? If we have the shot, and it's amazing to me, if I go back 2 months ago and say we had the shot under a Democrat president to dramatically increase detention beds, deportation flights, lock down the border, to be able to change the asylum laws, to be able to accelerate the process, no one would have believed it. And now no one actually wants to be able to fix it and says, I don't want to even debate it. I don't want to discuss it. We have to decide as Republicans, what are we going to actually do about the border? Leave it open or actually leave it closed?
I think one of the greatest hurdle he has, number one, election year, just reality. Number two is Joe Biden is so bad on the border. He's been so, I think it's almost impeachable what he's allowed to happen. We have about 8 million, people say 18 million here illegally if you add in the gotaways. And now all of a sudden he goes, yeah, I'll sign off on it. And they go, wait a second, what do you mean you got to sign off on it? You don't even know what's in it. And also, I know the tone and tenor of the White House in these meetings. They were against everything. They were worse than Senator Murphy. Murphy had to bring along the White House, who just wanted to let everything happen the way it was happening. They still have no problem with Mayorkas. So I worry about anything to do with discretion and this president. And I'm not saying that it's 2020, I would be worried. But now in 2024, I'm extremely concerned. I have no faith that he'll implement things. That's why it's got to be airtight. And I do worry about the interaction. If you give Border Patrol their druthers, they know how to do it.
100%.
So, but if they are pressured by their bosses, you let these people in. That's what worries me.
And to your point about Chris Murphy, there's a tweet up right now of Chris Murphy talking about that the border never closes. So you got the person who was the lead negotiator on the left and on the right saying two different things. You got the senator from Oklahoma saying, look, the border closes. Murphy's saying it doesn't close at all. Which is it?
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.